Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're tackling one of history's absolute biggest mysteries. We're talking about a lost civilization, a true superpower of its time that was, for a while, the largest on the entire planet. And then, poof, it just vanished from our collective memory for almost 4,000 years. Okay, so when you think dawn of civilization, what pops into your head? Probably Egypt, right? Mesopotamia? Well, this map here is going to blow that picture right out of the water. Just look at this. At its absolute peak, the Indus Valley Civilization, let's call it the IVC, was more than double the size of Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. We're talking about the biggest of the world's first three major urban cultures. It thrived all along the Indus River, and get this, another massive river system that doesn't even exist anymore. And that, right there, is the huge question we're digging into. I mean, this wasn't some small, forgotten culture. We're talking about a civilization that might have had up to 5 million people. They were total trailblazers in city planning and trade. So how on earth could they just disappear from history? It's this incredible story of a civilization that was found almost by accident, a story of pure genius, and then this silent, baffling vanishing act. So for thousands of years, it's like the IVC never even existed. They were just gone from the history books. Their amazing cities, built with millions and millions of perfectly baked bricks, were buried deep under these huge mounds of dirt. Their whole story was just sitting there, waiting, under the ground in what is now Pakistan and India.
You know what's absolutely wild is how close we came to never knowing about them. Seriously, this whole discovery wasn't some big, planned archaeological dig. Nope. It all started with a British Army deserter named Charles Masson, who literally just stumbled on these giant mounds. And here's the really tragic part. Before anyone figured out what they were, the city of Harappa was basically looted. Its ancient bricks were carted off to build a railway line. It wasn't until 1924 that the world was officially told, hey, we've just found a whole new chapter of human history.
Okay, so once archaeologists finally started digging, they weren't finding, primitive huts and simple villages. Not at all. They were uncovering some of the most advanced, most carefully planned cities of the entire ancient world. The proof of their genius wasn't hidden in some tomb. It was right there in the layout of their streets. These cities, places like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, they were absolute masterpieces of engineering. I mean, think about it. The streets were laid out in a perfect grid. The houses were all built from standardized, oven-baked bricks, so consistent quality. And they had these huge public structures. They didn't just let their cities grow randomly. They engineered them. And not just for efficiency, but for something really radical, public health. And this is where it gets really mind-blowing. Their sanitation systems, they show just how far ahead of their time they were. This wasn't primitive stuff at all. We're talking individual homes, each with its own well and bathing area. And the wastewater? It flowed into covered drains that ran right under the main streets. This level of city planning, this focus on hygiene, it was unheard of. It wouldn't be seen again for centuries. And you can just feel the awe in Sir John Marshall's words, right, when he finally made the announcement. You could tell he got it instantly. This wasn't just another pile of old rocks. He knew he was on the verge of something that was going to completely rewrite the history books. So you've got these super advanced cities, but here's where the mystery really gets deep. It's not just about what we find, it's about what we don't find. What's missing is just as fascinating, and it's what makes them so different from places like Egypt. Think about it. In Egypt, you've got the pyramids, giant temples. In Mesopotamia, you have ziggurats and massive palaces. They're all monuments to all-powerful kings and gods. But in the entire Indus Valley, archaeologists have found nothing like that. No grand palaces, no huge temples, no fancy royal tombs. The biggest things they built were public and practical, like this great bath or enormous granaries for storing food. So you have this lack of flashy, ego-driven buildings, right? And then you combine that with the fact that pretty much every house, whether it was big or small, was hooked up to that amazing water and drainage system. It really points to a society that didn't have a huge gap between rich and poor, which leads to a massive question. Who was in charge? How are they governed? Was it a council of priests, a committee of merchants, maybe a bunch of city-states that just shared a culture? The truth is, we just don't have a clue. And this brings us right to the absolute core of the mystery. The main reason we have to guess about everything, their rulers, their gods, their daily lives, is because the Indus people, well, they're silent. For all their brilliance, we can't hear their story from them directly because we cannot read their writing. Oh, they definitely had a writing system. No doubt about it. We have thousands of examples, mostly on these little beautifully carved stone seals. Scientists have cataloged about 400 different symbols. It's a real complex script that holds all the answers. But here's the kicker. For more than 100 years, it's stumped everyone. Nobody can crack it. And here's the big problem. You know the Rosetta Stone, right? It had the same long text in 3 different languages, which is how we cracked Egyptian hieroglyphs. Well, we don't have anything like that for the Indus script. Their inscriptions are super short. Most are just like 5 little characters. Without longer sentences, there's just not enough material for linguists or even supercomputers to find the patterns they need. It's like trying to understand a whole language from just a few whispers. So we're stuck trying to piece things together from artifacts like this famous seal. You see this really powerful figure, maybe a god, with animals all around him. Some experts think it could be a super early version of the Hindu god, Shiva, which, if true, would be an incredible connection through time. But since we can't read the writing on the seal, it's just a theory. A really interesting one, but still a guess. It feels like every clue we find just opens up a dozen new questions. Okay, so how does a civilization this advanced just end? It's another huge puzzle. For a long time, the go-to theory was a violent invasion. You know, they were conquered and wiped out. But modern science has painted a very different picture. The culprit wasn't an invading army. It was something much slower and much more unstoppable. Yeah, that whole Aryan invasion theory, it just doesn't fit the evidence anymore. When scientists actually looked at the skeletons found in the cities, there were no signs of mass violence, no big battle. The end of the IVC wasn't a sudden, bloody event. It was more like a slow, drawn-out fade to black. All the evidence we have now points to one major suspect: climate change. It looks like a massive, long-lasting megadrought hit the region about 4,200 years ago. The monsoons, which they depended on to feed their rivers, just got weaker and weaker. That other huge river, the Ghaggar-Hakra, which was the lifeblood for hundreds of their towns, it just dried up. And when the water goes, so does the farming. The huge food surplus that supported their massive cities, it vanished. And without food, the cities just couldn't survive. But here's the thing. It wasn't a sudden apocalypse where everyone died. It was a transformation, a story of survival. The people didn't just give up, they adapted. They packed up and left the big, thirsty cities. They moved eastward toward places with more reliable rain, like the Ganges River Valley, and they started living in smaller villages. Their great experiment in building massive cities, it was over. And that tells you something really powerful about their resilience, doesn't it? The end of their cities wasn't the end of their people. They just changed how they lived. They took their culture, their skills, and their knowledge with them, spreading out across the land in smaller communities. So that leaves us with this one last really big question. The grand cities crumbled to dust. The writing was lost. But the people survived. Their descendants, their DNA, their culture, it has to have survived too. It makes you wonder, right? How much of this ancient, silent civilization is still alive today, woven into the cultures and peoples of South Asia, just hiding in plain sight?